Today we're going to be making the Vogue Very Easy V9330, which is this pattern here. And I am going to make view B, which is the turtleneck version with these gorgeous ankle length sleeves. Right, so if we turn the pattern over, you've got three options with this pattern. You've got the one with the contrast neckband, the one with the neckband in the self fabric, and then one with a round neck instead. So this pattern comes in sizes XS through to XL, which correlates to sizes 4 to 6 up to 20 to 22, and it's designed for moderate stretch knits with 35% cross grain, sweatshirt fleece, ponte knit, wool jersey, and unsuitable for obvious diagonals. I am going to be making the size medium, and for this we need 1 5/8 of a metre of 60-inch wide fabric. So I've got just under 2 meters. So what I've done first is I've taken out the pattern piece and I'm going to be tracing off my pattern size. Now the size medium has a bust of 34 to 36, waist of 26.5 to 28 and a hip of 36 to 38. But when I actually look on the pattern piece, which is just here, it tells me that the size medium bust is 50.5 inches. So that gives you some indication of the amount of ease that's in this pattern. Obviously it's designed to be a loose fit. You can see by the pattern drawing here that it is a loose fit, but when a medium body measurements is 34 to 36 inches, you've got at least 14 inches of ease around that bust. So bear that in mind. Now, my bust is about a 38 inch at the minute, so I'm happy with the amount of ease that's going to be in there, but that's something for you to bear in mind when you are deciding on the size of your pattern. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to trace off all the pattern pieces because I don't want to cut this pattern up in case I want to make it in a different size in the future, and then we will see where we are at that point. Right, so when you've traced everything off and cut everything out, you should have something like this. You should have a front and a back and a side piece, a front and a back sleeve piece and a undersleeve as well. And then your last piece is the collar piece, which is there. So you cut two of everything apart from the collar piece, which we're just going to cut one of. You will notice that I have lengthened the sleeve pieces. So this pattern doesn't have any lengthen or shorten lines on, so I've just made my own just below the notch on the back sleeve and front sleeve pieces, and I've included an inch in there. I've also made sure I've done that on the undersleeve, but if you notice I've actually included 2 inches there, so all I've done is chopped an inch off the bottom so that they will match up. So that's the sleeve pieces. Now the front and back piece I haven't actually altered at all. If we look at the pattern envelope, it's quite low cut this, and I actually want it just a little bit higher on my hip, on my upper hip, rather than on my widest part, because I think it'll just make me look even wider. So I'm not going to lengthen this. I would normally lengthen bodice patterns by probably an inch and a half, but I'm just going to leave this as is, and I'm hoping that that will make sure that it's at the right length for me. Right, so now cut out all the pattern pieces, and the first thing that we need to do according to the pattern instructions is stay stitch the armhole edge of the front pattern piece. So we do that above the notch that's on the armhole piece, which if you've cut out your pattern correctly, you should have transferred all your notches. So we're going to stay stitch this with a 3mm stitch length all the way up both armhole sides above the notch. Right, once we've stay stitched the front piece, which is just over there, we then need to come to the upper sleeve front, which we are going to be stitching the dart in the arm. So the way I do this is working from the wrong side of the fabric. Obviously that's the right side, this is the wrong side. I am going to put a pin through the top of the dart where it's going to meet, and then I just make a little mark on the fabric with my friction pen, And then I do that on the other side too. So hopefully you can see that there. If I just zoom in a little bit. So where the pin has come through, I'll make another little mark just there. I usually do like a little cross, like so. And then I usually just snip into the dart legs at the bottom just there, so just like you would a notch, and then I can match that up with the mark that I've just placed at the top. So I'm going to do that now. I'll do on this fabric, I'm going to do it on an individual piece rather than trying to cut through both because it's quite thick. So again, I'm just going to snip through the dart leg just like that. And then what we should be able to do is, using my pattern ruler, is just draw on the wrong side of the fabric with my friction pen. So I've done that one wrong. Just make that a bit wider. There we go. And then I should be able to match those up like so. So if I just pin on that like that, and then I've got that pinned and we're ready to sew, and I'm going to repeat that with the other arm. Right, so the construction of this jumper is actually quite different to what I've done before. The next step, now we have stay stitched this armhole, I know you can't see that very well, but it is just there, is we attach the front sleeve to the front of the top. So essentially these are the front sleeve pieces here with the darts in that we've just stitched, and we are going to match the notches and pin all the way around. Right, so next we're going to take this to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch both those edges. Right, so I've stitched the front arm pieces to the front piece, and I have done a double seam there. If I bring that closer, you should just be able to see it. That's what's recommended in the pattern. So I stitched at 5/8 of an inch and then 1/4 of an inch inside the seam allowance from that. Now, I haven't overlocked this. You could do, obviously you can put this together using an overlocker, but I think it's probably going to add extra bulk that I don't want, mainly because this is quite a bulky fabric as it is. So depending on your fabric choice, you can overlock it. So we're going to put that to one side, and then next up we are going to turn our attentions to the back, these pieces here. So what we're going to do now is, like we did with the front, we're going to stay stitch the armhole edge from the double notches up to the shoulder seam on both pieces. Then we're going to stitch the centre back seam right sides together all the way down there at 5/8 of an inch. Right, so the back is stitched together down the centre back with a double stitched seam, and I have stay stitched both armhole edges. We're now going to put the back to one side and turn our attentions to the upper sleeve back. Now, essentially, very much like we did the upper sleeve front, we are going to be stitching the dart together, which I've just shown you how we do that, so I won't show you again. So I am going to get on with that now, and then we will attach this to the back like we did the front sleeve to the front. Stitch the dart in the back sleeve pieces, and we're going to do exactly the same as what we did with the front. So we are going to right sides together pin the sleeve, matching up the notches first, all the way around. Right, so those are pinned and we're going to go sew both of those armholes. Right, so once the back upper sleeve is stitched to the back with a double stitched seam, the next step is to put the front onto the back. So right sides together, and we are going to pin and stitch along the shoulder and the arm in one swoop. Now, as you can see, I've got a little bit of a step there, but I'm not too worried about it because it is it's an oversized top, so I've got plenty of room still. So we're just going to pin all this together, making sure that the arm seam there matches up. That's really important to get a nice neat finish. So let's take it to the sewing machine and we'll get that seam sewn and that one sewn. So we've stitched the shoulder and upper arm seam on both sides. We're going to put this to one side for now, and the next thing we're going to do is the underarm seam and the undersleeve. We've got undersleeve there and then the side here, and what we need to do is stitch them right sides together along the top part there. Right, so we've got an undersleeve and a side piece right sides together at the top. We're going to pin that and then we're going to stitch it. So this is where things get interesting, because we need to add the underarm sleeve piece and the side piece to our bodice. So if you remember, in the last step we just stitched along the top of the arm and the shoulder seam, so the actual under sleeve and the side of the bodice is still not stitched together. So we're going to open that out on one side like so, and then taking one of our side and undersleeve pieces that we've sewn together, we are going to match up the underarm seam and pin. We're going to stitch that first and then we'll come back and see what we do next. Right, so the underarm and undersleeve are now stitched to one side of the bodice, and we need to stitch it to the other side of the bodice. So we'll just open that out and pin it all together exactly like we did the other side, and then we're going to go stitch that together. So once you've stitched the other side of the underarm together, you should have something that looks like this. Obviously I'm looking at it from the back, and we've got the side piece and the underarm piece stitched on both sides. So now we need to do exactly the same on the other side with the other underarm piece and side piece. Turn it the right way out and you should have something that looks like this. So the basic bodice of the jumper is now sewn together, and what we need to do now is attach the collar. So move that to one side. Here is our collar piece here. Right, so we've got the collar piece. What we do first is we fold it over right sides together, and we're going to stitch along that edge there. So I'm going to pin that, take it to the sewing machine and stitch it, and then show you what that looks like. So next up, you want to stay stitch all the way around the neckline, just inside the seam allowance. And here is the collar that I've stitched along there. So next thing, what you want to do is open up the seam allowance and give it a good press. I'm going to finger press this, mainly because of the fabric that I'm using, it being this sort of fluffy knit fabric. I don't want to ruin the fabric with my iron, so I'm just going to finger press this, and then we're going to bend it over like so and pin it. So you should have something that looks like that. Right, so now we need the jumper inside out. Like so. And we're going to work from the back with the centre seam. So we're going to insert the collar so it's right sides together, and we're going to have the back seam of the collar matched up to the back seam of the centre back. When you've done that, when you've pinned it all the way around, we're going to take this back to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch all the way around. Okay, so when the neck collar is on, it should look something like that, and we should be nicely matched up at the back, and it's almost done. So next up, what we need to do is hem the sleeves. What I'm going to do is I am going to finish these four edges with my overlocker, just because I think it'll give a nice neater finish when I turn it under, and the same with the bottom as well, the bottom hem. So both hems, the hem allowance suggested is 1 1/4 inches. I'm probably going to go with that, so I'm going to get that done and then we can try it on and see what it looks like.